with the Reverend Dr. Dylan Toussaint.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, how could the rewriting of the 14th Amendment, affect Black Americans? Again, how could the rewriting of the 14th Amendment affect Black Americans? And in the second watch, what's wrong with the selling of sperm and unfertilized eggs? For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on the selling of human sperm or eggs? We're asking you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
All right, so today's I quote says, an apology is a good way to have the last word.
Okay. Good morning, Juka.
Good morning, good morning.
You know, I'm not so sure about that quote because how could it be the last word if you're expecting a response of acceptance or rejection?
Right, it can't be the last word.
Right.
Yeah.
By the way, you're saying that today is husband day.
That's right.
They have a wife day as well?
I mean, I assume.
They have a bachelor day as well?
It should be.
They have a spinster day as well?
There should be.
All right.
I'm pretty sure there is. If you look for it,
the first watch will be back after this break.
Get ready for a heartfelt and uplifting conversation on To Have and To Hold, a special series on the truly marvelous program. This Thursday, January 30, join Dr. Colleen Beckles as she sits with the lovely Delroy and Trudy and Watson. With almost 5 years of marriage under their belt, this dynamic duo shares their inspiring stories of love, resilience, and hope. Tune in this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. only on the family station Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, last week, President Donald Trump reportedly signed an executive order in an attempt to rewrite the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Now, since that signing, there has been much pushback, with some groups arguing that it could and would negatively impact Black Americans in more ways than one. So, are their concerns fear, or are they based on fear-mongering? Well, to discuss this and related issues, we have online Peter Malaguti, professor of law at Massachusetts School of Law, and he's also a U.S. Constitution law expert. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Dr. Toussaint. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I hope I pronounced your name right, correctly.
You did it remarkably well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Now, Peter Malaguti, for the record, what really is the 14th Amendment, and when and why was it made?
So the 14th Amendment was largely in response to two events in American history. As you know, America was a slave state up until 1865, after the fighting of the Civil War.
Mhm.
Prior to the Civil War, which ran from 1860 to 1865, 1861 to 1865, the Supreme Court of the United States decided a very controversial and quite frankly offensive case called Dred Scott versus Sanford. And
Mhm.
in this case, the Supreme Court held that all persons of African descent, whether they were slaves or free, were inferior inferior and not citizens, and not entitled to any law that the white man must respect.
Mhm.
In large part, the Civil War was a reaction to this case. The Civil War was fought. The North won the Civil War. And just before the end of the Civil War, in January of 1865, Congress wrote the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. The 13th Amendment, and it was ratified later that year. The 13th Amendment was not well accepted by the southern states. And the
Mhm.
southern states passed what are called black codes denying rights to former slaves who are now free. So the 14th Amendment was a response to this. It was not enough just to give former slaves their freedom. There had to be a way to deal with the discrimination.
Mhm.
So the 14th Amendment is essentially, in the United States, our anti-discrimination amendment to the Constitution. In the parts that most people know about is that it guarantees all persons the rights to the privileges and immunities of all citizens of the United States, the right to be not have your life, liberty, or property taken without due process, and perhaps most importantly, the right to be treated with equal protection under the laws. Now, what we're talking about today, Dr. Toussaint, is the birthright citizenship part of the 14th Amendment.
Mhm.
That was the very first sentence of the 14th Amendment, and it was a direct response to the Dred Scott case, which said that persons of African descent have no rights. And
Mhm.
so the way that Congress dealt with that is they wrote the sentence, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States in the state wherein they reside.
Mhm.
So that way, the southern states could not say former slaves are not entitled to the equal
Same
protection
right.
of the laws
Yes.
because now they're citizens of the United States by mere birthright, called jus soli. Many states recognize birthright citizenship. If you're born on the soil of the country, you are a citizen of the country. So that's a capsule of how it came to be and what it says.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that historical background. Now, as was mentioned earlier, last week President Trump signed an executive order which ostensibly is an attempt to rewrite the same 14th Amendment. How could this affect Black Americans, and how was that even possible that he could have signed that?
Well, the good news is it is almost certainly unconstitutional what he did. And in normal times, I would say that there wouldn't be a court in the United States that
Mhm.
would find what he did to be constitutional. And indeed, just the other day, one court has already entered an injunction against him from enforcing it. Now, that said, there's a long legal battle to go. So when you ask how could he have done that, the answer is not legally. But he has done it anyways. And as you know, this particular president has a history of doing such things. He's the same guy who, although former President Barack Obama was born in Hawaii, which was a state of the United States, launched the false claim that he was not born in the United States, therefore was not a citizen and couldn't run for president. So this is the type of things that this guy does. Now, if he succeeds, and there are 2 or 3 people on the United States Supreme Court who I worry about, and there are always the silent ones who you don't know, who you also worry about. So if he succeeds, this will have significant effects on the country. Number one, it will, quite frankly, quickly lower the population of the United States in terms of counting representatives and the like. Right now, we count all people who reside in a state, whether they're citizens or non-citizens, for determining how many representatives of Congress those people get. I think this is a first-ditched effort to try to change that law and start counting how many representatives states get based on only citizens. In the United States, we would have a diminishing population were it not for immigration. So, and this would greatly affect the so-called blue states where a majority of the immigrants live. So I think it's being done for a power play.
What about the blacks in particular, Peter?
Yes. So look, number one, a lot of immigrants are persons of color, are black. We have immigrants coming in from all over the world. I personally teach many students who are here on study visas from Africa, from the Caribbean, from South America, and the like. And many of these persons are black. Probably the next shot is going to be to limiting or restricting the temporary status of such people as well. So it will almost immediately affect those folks. Many of these folks come, they get educated in America, they want to stay in America. So it's going to certainly have effect there. It's also probably long-term, not short-term, but long-term, going to have effects on African Americans, those who are actually born in the United States. As I've already said, if the representative structure of Congress changes and states with larger populations of African Americans are not as represented, then certainly politically, blacks are going to have a quieter voice in the United States. And number 3 is the stigma of the entire thing. I mean, think about what's going on here. This 14th Amendment was enacted to deal with racism that allowed one human being with white skin to own another with black skin. If we say that parts of this amendment, and particularly the part that was meant to protect former slaves, persons who were black, the symbolic import of that is huge. It is suggesting to Black Americans that the protections that they thought they had are not there anymore. Once you erode rights, they continue to erode, and you go to a place where very few rights are left.
Yeah. Once you erode rights, they continue to erode. All right, we're looking forward to more on this very, very controversial topic. We're up on a break. Peter Malaguti, we'll be right back.
Do more on the go. Discover a new and convenient way to send money abroad with GK1 app. Download GK1 from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to send with Western Union today. The time by Grace Kennedy remittance is
7:15.
The new year with cashback from Aim Financial. You can get up to $15,000 in cashback with every loan disbursed. Plus, with increased loan amounts, you can get anything you want. And guess what? Every loan comes with a free gift. Yes, free. So what are you waiting on? Apply now at loanteam.aimfinancialja.com or WhatsApp 876-437-3982. It's January 31st. So make sure you apply early and start 2025 right with Aim Financial. Conditions apply.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations
Recommendations on what?
on how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.nlca.gov.jn.
We are on the road to republic.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And this is the first watch. We're asking, how could or would the rewriting of the 14th Amendment affect Black Americans? In so doing, we have online Peter Malaguti, who's professor at law at the Massachusetts School of Law. He's also a U.S. Constitution law expert. Still there with us, Peter?
Yes, I am.
Great. No, I'm just wondering, you see, especially when you had the break a while ago, how would citizenship be determined if this written document by the president is ratified? How would they determine citizenship in America, therefore?
So there's two ways. America's like many countries, and including, I believe, Jamaica. There's essentially two ways that one can be a citizen of the United States. The first we've been talking about, which is called jus soli. If you are born on the soil of the United States,
Right.
you become a citizen.
Right.
The second is called jus sanguinis, which is citizenship through blood. Now, an example of the first is what we're talking about. I am a citizen of the United States through jus soli. My grandparents were immigrants. My parents were the first people born in the United States. They became citizens by birthright citizenship, and I am a citizen through birthright citizenship, having been born in the United States. But let's say that my parents traveled to a foreign country, and I was born while they were in a foreign country.
Mhm.
This is where your just sanguinis citizenship would apply. Because I'm born to United States citizens, I would therefore be a citizen of the United States. What Trump is looking to do is to, and by the way, just sanguinis citizenship is controlled by Congress. The only citizenship that's controlled by the Constitution is birthright citizenship. What Trump is looking to do is to limit birthright citizenship. People like me who were born to parents who are already citizens would have no problem. He wants to use the phrase "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof" to argue that immigrants to the United States who do not have temporary immigrant status or have not become citizens cannot, by reason of giving birth to a child, cause those child to be citizens. So he wants to deprive birthright citizenship to immigrants and children of immigrants.
Would that not have implications for the president's wife and the child?
Yes, except that the president's wife at one point got permanent status, permanent immigrant status, and I believe is now a citizen of the United States. But it is interesting. The president seems to be, not so worried about some immigrants while worried about other immigrants. He seems to have no problem with European immigrants.
Right. Right. You see,
Um,
there are those Peter Maliguti who I think would argue that Trump's actions in this regard are justified or justifiable because of the proliferation of anchor babies in the US of A.
well, I would argue that they're not justifiable because of the proliferation of anchor babies.
Let's hear why.
In the United States. And if a court were to consider this as it should, it would rule that Trump's actions are unconstitutional. They're unlawful. So I'm against what he is trying to do. And I think most lawyers in the United States would agree with me. Now, we're concerned with the current makeup of the United States Supreme Court. We don't know where this is going to go. They seem to be willing to give the president more and more power in the United States. So, so I would like to be clear that I don't think this is lawful, and I'm opposed to it. I am the grandson of immigrants myself, and immigration is what has made America a great country, and all, as everyone knows.
And you see implications, of course, for Jamaicans?
Yes, I've had many students who are Jamaicans, many students who have come to the United States, made a life, some of whom have retained citizenship, some who have not, some who want to remain Jamaican citizens. If this is allowed to proceed, and it'll just be the beginning of an attempt to crack down on immigration.
Right.
It will not only hurt, you know, this is a country that has attracted the best and the brightest. We have welcomed immigrants throughout the history of the country. Alexander Hamilton was an immigrant from the Caribbean, in fact. So it's the lifeblood of the country. If we deprive the citizens of the right to come and establish citizenship in the country is going to hurt both economically and intellectually. And the people who are looking for opportunities will suffer as well.
Yeah. So Professor Malaguti, what is the legal recourse? Can you give us an idea of what can or should take place in response to this signing last week?
Yes, it's already started. People who are immigrants or representatives of immigrants have filed several lawsuits in the federal courts of the United States. And a court in its right mind is going to look at a case that's already been decided on this. The case is United States versus Wong Kim Ark, which has already decided that this phrase, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, does not exclude immigrants from birthright citizenship. It was meant to apply to diplomats who had children while they were living in the United States. And indeed, the court would realize quite quickly that in 1868, when the 14th Amendment became law, there was no such thing as an illegal immigrant in the United States. So the 14th Amendment provision that we're talking about could not have meant to ban birthright citizenship of undocumented aliens in the United States. So I think it's a case that is going to be won all the way up to the United States Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I'm not currently confident in the United States Supreme Court. 3 of the appointees were put in by the current president. I think 2 of them already have expressed interest in going the way that the president wants to go on this.
Oh, yes?
It's you know, I'm worried about it. I'm confident that I'm right on the law, but I'm still worried about it. I'll put it that way.
So it could be ratified the way things have been so far.
yes, it could be ratified. I think the odds are against it. And we always have hope, Dr. Toussaint.
Yes, yes, Professor. Yes, have to have hope. But what, in your view, are the legal implications for other amendments in the U.S. Constitution based on what was signed last week?
Well, I think that's a terrific question. Once our elected officials begin to disrespect clear rights that our Constitution provides, it takes us down a path where people are going to start disrespecting the Constitution more and more. I think it will lead to a further erosion of the Equal Protection Clause, which is stated later in the 14th Amendment. There are certainly other rights that we have as citizens. The right to free speech, I worry about. This president has already mentioned that he is going to be going after the media. He calls the media the enemy of the people. I think it's that slippery slope where if you erode some rights, the erosion will continue.
And of course, I think I heard in the election run-up a lot of talk about Project 2025, is it?
Yes.
Is anything in there that lines up with this, Professor? Implicitly?
I have not read the entire document. The entire document is a blueprint for one political party to essentially dominate the political landscape in the United States. We only have two political parties. I believe Jamaica is similar. There are two major political parties. That's what we have. As you know, a vibrant democracy requires debate and requires more than one point of view. I think Project 2025 is an attempt to impose one dominant view on the United States. I think this may well be a small part of the whole big project.
And finally, we have less than 2 minutes. What should we do from our end as Jamaicans or the Caribbean in this regard? Can we do anything?
Well, of course, your stakeholders. You have enjoyed the right to travel freely to the United States as visitors. You have enjoyed the right to travel freely to the United States as students to become educated. And you've enjoyed the right to travel and work in the United States. You need to keep speaking out against this type of thing that's going on. Again, understanding that the United States should be welcoming people from Jamaica who have a lot to contribute to the fabric of our country. Americans need to be firm in speaking out against this attempt to erode the equal protection rights of the 14th Amendment. But Jamaicans who come and add to our culture and add to our economy should be doing the same. So the short answer is, when you see an erosion of rights, all you can do is fight. Keep fighting.
In a legal manner.
Okay. Yes, of course. Of course. Thank you. Thank you for the qualification.
That's okay, Prof. Join us, Professor Peter Malaguti. Be safe, and our prayers are with you going forward.
A pleasure, Dr. Toussaint. Have a good day.
You too. The Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
The time by Gem Bank is
7:30.
Are you looking for modern faucets to transform your home or commercial property? Then Home of Faucets is your place to be. We are located at Shop 42 Police Mall, Caledonia Road, Mandeville, Manchester. We also provide free island-wide next-day delivery. Contact us on Instagram at Home of Faucets. By telephone at 876-492-4810. Contributing to satisfaction.
Mommy work hard, for real. She be the most who send me and my brother go school. So, the dream is always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled two dreams with one joint bank savings plan. Further my education, and I make mama proud.
Wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, 55 bridges to be upgraded. Also, passenger jet collides with helicopter while landing at Reagan Washington National Airport. Oh my. Then in the Observer, government in dialogue with U.S. partners amid deportation scare. Also in the Observer, curfews extended in Manchester. And in Loop News, just over US 3.9 million spent by Irish corporation on gas exploration. And then finally in Loop News, 48-hour curfew imposed in East Kingston extended. Those are some of the major stories in our newspapers. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your thoughts on the selling of human sperm or eggs? Wow. We're asking to leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
You're invited to listen to Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, every Thursday at 10 p.m. First Thursdays, the New United Bible Way Church of God with Reverend Dr. Jasmine Brown. Every second Thursday, Apostle Dr. Elaine Richards, Public Relations Officer, Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, and Women of God in Service, Bogus Ministries International. Every third Thursday, Senior Pastor Fitzroy Carr, Praise Deliverance Ministry. Every fourth Thursday, Reverend Dr. Leonie Samuels, pastor at the Richmond New Testament Church of God in St. Mary. And on fifth Thursdays, Reverend Dr. Ruthlyn McCarthy, Kingdom Covenant Family Church. That's Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, every Thursday at 10 p.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Get ready to take a trip down memory lane. This throwback Thursday, January 30th, inside Alive 1 to 5 with me, the creative Jesus guy, Darren Mitchell. Get those mental muscles moving with the brain testing mental size at 145. Inside pieces of the past, we bring you 20 fun facts about Jamaica's history you may not know. Take a trip back in time at 3 p.m. with our Throwback Thursday playlist. Stick and stay for more.
I've got
Get ready for a heartfelt and uplifting conversation on To Have and To Hold, a special series on the Truly Marvelous program. This Thursday, January 30th, join Dr. Colleen Beckles as she sits with the lovely Delroy and Trudian Watson. With almost 5 years of marriage under their belt, this dynamic duo shares their inspiring stories of love, resilience, and hope. Tune in this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. only on the family station Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jukal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. What are your thoughts on the selling of human sperm or eggs? Jukal?
All right. So first up, from Cherry in Spanish Town, let's hear from her. Cherry, talk to me.
Good morning, blessings to you and all the wonderful staff of Love 101. You know, it's truly amazing the body parts that we as human beings would sell. But for me, selling sperms and fertilized eggs, first and foremost, it's so hard if you meet someone personally to know about their background and all of that, much less to purchase an egg or sperm who you don't know anyone about. And I know they would say that they get things about the person in per se who donate these eggs or sell these eggs or the sperm. But it's best you meet persons and do what you want to do to get pregnant more than to purchase those eggs or sperm, because sometimes you don't know what you are buying. So it's best to go the right way that God would want us to go, man to woman. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Cherry. Thank you so much. The other one was really alluding to the first watch.
Okay.
Says here, Trump promised he would make America great again, meaning quote unquote white again. He's setting that into motion. Interesting to see how many white European immigrants, legal or illegal, will be deported. Only the Native American Indians can be said to be true Americans. That's from Monica.
All right. Thank you, Monica. And Cherry from Spanish Town is saying sometimes you don't know what you are buying. Interesting. And so we segue into the second watch. A new report out of Europe states inter alia that babies born from sperm donors nearly tripled since 2006. And there were over 70,000 donor-conceived children born since 1991. And a poll conducted by the Jamaica Observer recently revealed a surprising willingness among readers to donate their eggs to help other women conceive or support their partner in the process, with 43% of respondents stating they would donate if they were compensated at a good price. Now, could anything be wrong with this practice, especially if it helps in facilitating the reproductive process? Well, to give us their perspectives, we have joining us Dr. Sharifa Frederick, Clinical Director of the Caribbean Fertility Center, and the Reverend Dr. Peter Malcolm, Board Chairman of the Churches of Christ in Jamaica and the Pastor of the Portmore Church of Christ. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Morning to you, listeners.
Great. Good morning. Good to have you both. I begin with you, Dr. Frederick. Just to be clear, what really is a fertility center, and what roles, if any, do such centers generally play in the selling of sperm and unfertilized eggs?
Okay,
Doc?
morning everyone. Thank you, 101, Love 101, for inviting me today to
You're
shed some
welcome.
lights on this very topical subject. Okay, so a fertility center is a center that provides care, reproductive care, to persons who are having difficulty getting pregnant. So they're going about their natural way, trying to conceive. and they can't conceive. And so they tap into our services to help them to build a family.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just want to correct everyone with the terminology of selling eggs and sperm.
Mm-hmm.
Eggs and sperm are not sold.
Mm-hmm.
So it's egg and sperm donation. So
Mm-hmm.
persons come in and they donate eggs and sperm for altruistic reasons. They want to help a family who are having difficulty, or a couple or a person, individual, who is having a difficulty in conceiving. So it's not that they're paid when they come and give their egg or sperm. They are compensated. So they have to make a numerous amount of trips. They have to do numerous blood tests. They have to do procedures, which is an inconvenience to them. And so they're compensated for their time and their efforts. But we always tell people who are coming to donate, if they come and they say they want to be paid, we say we don't think this is for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a donation. We
So,
cannot pay somebody for eggs because eggs are so precious. There's no price on
yes.
an egg. And so it's a compensation that they get, which they find useful and helpful, if they want to help pay for their student loans, etc. So it's not that we're selling it. They're coming to donate for altruistic reasons.
Okay.
No, people don't just pick up and come to our center because they want eggs. They come to our center needing eggs or needing sperm. So it's a woman who is unable to produce eggs for herself. So she's gone around and she's tried the natural route. She's tried to have intercourse with her husband, and they are falling short. And when I do investigations on this person, they they prove that they're unable to produce eggs. And so they need an egg now to produce a family. Same with a male. He comes in and sometimes he doesn't have any sperm at all. So I don't think that couples who can't produce eggs and sperm should be denied the ability to build a family for themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Just a clarification, Dr. Frederick. The nature of the compensation. Can you give
Yes.
us an idea of it?
Okay, so the compensation would be in the figures. Sometimes it's 2,000 to, it can range up from 2 to 3,000, 3,500 US dollars per donation.
Two
And
to
they're
three
only,
thousand.
right, US dollars. So, and they're only allowed to donate up to 3 times. They can't donate more than 3 times.
And you're saying that is compensation, not payment.
Exactly. It's compensation for their time, their efforts for coming and, doing this
Not the
altruistic deed.
expenses. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Reverend Dr. Malcolm, what are your commendations or concerns with what was said a while ago?
Okay, very, very interesting position taken. Well, first thing I want to say is, the world has changed and the world is changing.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that is happening. But the truth is that God has not changed. God remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to look at this from the position of the sanctity of life, the sacredness of the human body, and for persons to, who would consider this, to really think that there are more issues than just financial, there are more issues than just helping somebody to be able to conceive or to have a family. You know that we were created, first of all, in God's image and in his likeness. The word of God tells us that.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who accept the Christian faith, would also be aware of a scripture that says, don't you know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit and that you are not your own and all of these things. So persons would really, I believe, also want to think about the spiritual implications. This is not just a commercial transaction or a physical engagement, but is this something that I think that God would be pleased with me doing? Yes, it seems on the surface when I'm helping somebody. But I'm glad for the clarification that it is not selling, but there is money involved, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go as far as saying this sounds like the commercialization of the human body or parts thereof, or the merchandising. But there are moral issues there. There are social issues also that I see.
Okay.
where children who are produced from such a union might now question, okay, who is my dad?
Tell you what, Doc,
Yeah.
hold that
Yeah.
point. You're going on to an
Yeah.
interesting point. We're up on a break.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Okay. There we go.
Time is now 7:45.
The auto insurance advantage.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And this is the second watch. We're asking what's wrong with the selling of sperm and unfertilized eggs. And in so doing, we have online the Reverend Dr. Peter Malcolm, board chairman of the Churches of Christ in Jamaica and pastor of the Portmore Church of Christ. We also have Dr. Sharifa Frederick, clinical director of the Caribbean Fertility Center. Before the break, Dr. Reverend Malcolm, you were telling us about your concerns and you mentioned moral, social issues and implications. Please say more on that, sir.
Yes, and as I said, this is something that I actually I'm personally familiar with.
Okay.
Where children produced out of this arrangement get to an age and a stage where they now question their parenting. Who is my father? And you know that also has legal implications in terms of property and various things that happen down the road. So the question of, okay, mom might keep this a secret or dad might keep this a secret for a certain point in time, but the child will come to an age where they might have to do a DNA test for some reason, and then they now begin to now question this person who you said was my mom or my dad is actually not so. So those are some of the hurdles that we face going down the road. As I mentioned before, the spiritual issues. For person now saying, is God okay with this? Is he pleased with me using my body for this? Yes, I want to say yes, there's money involved, there is financial gain, and also legal issues. Is this legal everywhere? Is this now okay that it's now allowed by government regulation that persons can now do this at one time? It was done in hiding. Is this now legal? So these are some of the issues that I think persons would have to grapple with.
And as you mentioned that before I go back to Dr. Frederick, Reverend Dr. Malcolm, based on those issues and implications that you raised a while ago, your view, are you against or for these procedures?
Well, I would exercise extreme caution. I know that the matter of having children in a family is an issue for persons. I know of couples and I know of persons who want to have children and are not able to, and this seems to be their last recourse. But I always say to such persons, you need to prayerfully consider this, talk to the Lord about it. Is it that the Lord doesn't want you to have, or is this not in your best interest? This is a decision that when you make it, you're going to have to live with this decision for the rest of your life.
So you don't consider it a sin or a wrongdoing?
Let me put it this way. I know one person in particular who actually went this route and decided that, Pastor, the reason I am doing it this way is because I don't want to sin. I want to have a child. I don't see myself getting married, but I want to have a child and I don't want to commit fornication. So this to me seems to be the way to get around that.
But do you consider it a sin, though? Is it a sin in your book?
It's not everything that I believe. Of course, we know that the Bible doesn't stipulate everything. There's not a scripture that will determine determine an action as a sin or not or not a sin. So
Yes.
I wouldn't go out on a limb to say this is sinful, but I'm saying that there are consequences to the action that each person must consider before they go into something like that.
Okay, think I get you now. Okay, Dr. Frederick, you want to respond to some of the issues and implications and concerns raised by Reverend Malcolm?
Yes, I agree with you, Pastor. It's not an easy decision to make, and it's a decision that requires very careful consideration because there are long-term, issues that can come up in the future. So we usually recommend that all of these persons who are, thinking about this, they undergo psychological evaluations and counseling as well, because we have third-party psychologists who will go through all the what ifs when this happens and try to put things in perspective for the intended parents. It should be they should consider their own values, their beliefs, and their own personal circumstances before going through this process. I mean, I am the clinician, so I don't take on the responsibility of evaluating who is fit and who is not and
Right.
counseling. I usually refer them to a third party psychologist who is versed on these issues and can help to put things in perspective for the intended parents. Sometimes they ask me questions like, would I tell the child and so on. I would advise them that, of course, you would inform the child if you wish to at a time in which the child is mature enough to handle a situation like this. So I would wait until definitely the child is 18 years and above to broach this topic with the child. Because yes, there are circumstances when DNA, testing, will be required. And so they don't want to be caught with their pants down. So yes, it is a decision that requires very careful consideration and it's not to be taken lightly.
And that counseling that you mentioned before, how long is it done? Who does it?
Well, we have our personal third reproductive counselors that do it. We have more than one person that will talk with them, and the counselor determines how many sessions this person would need, depending on their needs and their concerns.
So the aim of the counseling is what?
The aim of it, one, it's a psychological evaluation. So what they do is they take in the person's situation. So they look at the religious beliefs, they look at their social, situation. So they do an evaluation to see if they are mentally and emotionally fit to carry out this process.
Mm, okay. And before I go back to Rev, one of the practices done, the procedures involves IVF. Am I correct? Is it in
In
vitro
vitro,
fertilization?
correct.
Good. There
Yes.
are concerns in regards to the unhealthy embryos that are still there. The argument is that they understand they are discarded. Is that so?
Well, an unhealthy embryo will not continue to divide. So it's not that it's divide, it's not that it's discarded, it's just
What's
left.
done?
It's
What's done
it's
with it
not
then?
frozen, it's just left there and then it will stop growing.
Was
It will stop.
is not used?
It's not used. No, it's not used.
Right. So there are persons who are concerned about that in terms of the ethics behind it.
Right.
What's your
Well, that's a
response?
that's a totally different topic outside of egg and sperm donation. That's
Uh-huh.
no the whole process of IVF and what happens to the embryos which are not
Yeah, I'm
used.
just asking because I have you on the program, you know?
Right,
That's one,
right,
yes.
right. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, discarded sounds like, you're killing the embryo. If the embryo
Uh-huh.
is not fit enough, it will not continue to survive. So it's not that
Uh-huh.
you're killing an embryo, you're killing a person. It's just
Okay.
won't that it won't continue to live.
Okay, so it's not discarded in quotations. You're saying
Right.
it's unusable anyway.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Reverend Dr. Malcolm, what's your response to those who argue that the Bible does say that you should bear fruit, have out your lot, stuff like that?
Well, you know that the Bible also give many instances of ladies in particular who were barren.
But it should
And
be
at some
fruitful and
point,
multiply.
yes, but the Lord made some people barren. And then at some point in time, He would have opened the womb, and then we saw what would have happened. Like, who remembers that Samson's mother was barren? Who remembers that Rachel at a certain point was barren? Elizabeth was barren, and she brought forth John the Baptist. And, I believe that God is a God of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and what God allows, He allows for His purposes. My advice for everybody will always be to seek the Lord and seek His purpose in these things. I can share this personal thing that my wife and I were married for 10 years before we saw our first child.
Okay.
And now almost in my old age, I have two boys in school. One just started high school and one is in grade 2. But that was God's providence. After 10 years of trying and doing all sorts of things, they said, honey, let's leave this to the Lord. And guess what? She conceived at 42 and at 46. So I'm just saying, I would always give the advice to leave it to the Lord. The Lord knows He's the one who determines life. When we decide to take it into our own hands, that is when we might get into a little problem. Because, the desire to have a child is something very immediate, and people are saying their biological clock is running down and so on, and they don't want to end up in their golden age alone, and they want someone to take care of them. But sometimes they're not thinking in the future where the social issues will arise, and they are very often not thinking about the implications of the action. But for the church, I would say this: the church must always be sensitive. We must be caring when we approach people. When people approach us with these things, we must not be condemnatory, but we must always be seeking to support these persons, even those who have gone ahead and done this. Our job is to win them back and to give them the best support that they need.
And for clarification, Reverend Dr. Malcolm, you say leave it to the Lord, don't take it into your own hands. Does that exclude what is being done at Dr. Frederick's center?
I am saying that would be my advice. That would be my advice.
No, what I'm saying is leave it to the Lord, yes. But could the Lord be using what is done at her center as a part of the answer to the issue?
You're asking me to answer for the Lord. I'm not.
Could it be based on your experience over the years?
In terms of being an option?
Yes.
Well, I will just simply say this. I know, as I said, of a personal situation where a mother, where a lady in church, and this is a Christian who wanted a child, and she went ahead and did this, told me afterwards that she had done this and she had now become pregnant. And well, I gave this as much support as I could. Guess what? That child last year graduated from university in the States with the high honors. And I continue to support. My thing is, it is an individual decision between them and their God. And when somebody and their God say they have spoken and their God has given them the freedom, I would hesitate to condemn or to have an opinion.
Thank you.
That's what I would do.
Dr. Frederick, you seem to have the last word. We have a couple seconds left.
Well, the way I see it is that, I think that God has given us the ability. I pray about it every day. I pray for the ability to help people. I mean, I see how people suffer when they can't have kids. They're very unhappy. And then I see the joy that it brings them when they're able to conceive through IVF and, these means. So, I mean, I see it as God using us to help people and to make people happy and to help them to build their families.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I want to thank you both for joining us. Interesting, informative, insightful discussion. Have a safe and productive day.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information or to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-959627. Of course, this has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guests. Please join Mr. Stokely Marshall next week as he continues to look at the issues of the day. I am Dylan Toussaint, handing you back to Love in the Morning with Jokal Dyer.